Hi, I'm Jake Belair. I am one of the lead ambassador animal keepers at the Nashville Zoo in Tennessee.
Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Rossifari podcast. Y'all, this episode is coming on the heels of two really unique episodes where I went to the AZA conference and then the AAZV conference and did conference recaps, while there. And it was a lot of fun, and I got a lot of feedback from y'all saying that you really enjoyed those episodes, which makes me really happy. But I have to admit, we strayed from talking about actual animals for those episodes. We talked about all kinds of cool stuff that happened at the conferences, and you got to hear from a bunch of amazing people about their conference experiences. But there wasn't much going on in the world of animal chatter. So I am here to rectify that situation this week. It's also a bit of Back to the Future time because the very first guest that I ever had on this podcast, Season 1, Episode 1, was Jake Belair of the Nashville Zoo. Now, we did that one on Zoom, and obviously a lot has changed both in his department, the ambassador department at the Nashville Zoo, and in my world, actually knowing how to do a podcast now. As a matter of fact, back when I talked to Jake, we didn't even have a little something called
Poop Story
yet, if you can imagine such a thing. So it was really cool to be able to reconnect with Jake, to actually do an interview in person rather than on Zoom, and to just have this really fun full circle moment. I ended up talking about a lot of things that, honestly, when I talked to Jake the first time, I didn't know this industry well enough to even know to ask. So it's a lot of fun. Beyond that, we were on a very limited time budget. And Jake basically told me that we could either go and sit down and do an interview, or we could go through the ambassador building and I could meet and we could talk about a bunch of the ambassador animals. Now, y'all know me, and yes, that's right. I chose to do this entire interview while going through the ambassador building. It's basically a tour of the building. You're going to get to hear about a ton of amazing animals, and it's just a lot of fun. I will say this. The ambassador building was designed in consultation with the keepers there, and there's a lot of really cool stuff that the building has. We talk about it some in this episode. We talked about it a lot in the first episode with Jake, but it was not designed by sound engineers. The sound in some of these rooms was truly horrendous. I spent much longer than I ever expected making this audio as good as it is. But there are going to be parts where you're going to be like, wow, what is going on? You will be able to hear everything. And I promise you, the moments where the audio is the worst are some of the coolest, because we're meeting aardvarks, we're meeting binturongs. It's a really good time, y'all. If that is too much for you, just skip ahead to about halfway through the interview, maybe even a little further than that, and we go to a different part of the building where the audio really calms down. So don't miss out on all the good content just because some animals like to be in big, tall rooms, which is the best thing for them. You're going to hear about that as part of this interview. But unfortunately, it's not great for audio recording. And this was before I got my new microphones, which maybe I'll use for my third interview with Jake and will make things sound a little bit better. I really love Jake. He's an amazing person. He has introduced me to some of my favorite guests on the podcast. He's one of those people that if you know this industry or the people in this industry at all, if you say his name, they probably know him. And if they know him, they definitely love him. But that's because he does more than just work with the Nashville Zoo. He's also a member of the ABMA. Now, I like to call that ABMA, but I get in trouble whenever I do. You may remember hearing about the ABMA on my interview with Shane Gorbett, who had been at the Columbus Zoo at the time and is also a member of the ABMA. And in case you were wondering, yes, the ABMA does actually stand for something. Did you know that there are a lot of acronyms in the zoo world? If you did not, now you do. But the ABMA stands for the Animal Behavior Management Alliance, and you can find them at the ABMA, theabma.org. And I'm highly recommending that you go and do that and check that out if you have any interest in animals and behavior, because not only is it a wonderful organization, but guess what, y'all? It is October. Okay, that might have confused you. I should probably explain. So it is October, and the ABMA is celebrating a very important thing. It is Behavior Month. Every year in October, the ABMA celebrates what they call Behavior Month. There is free content every single day on their Facebook page. You can get $5 off a membership in October. They do weekly Zoom summaries. And you can get free downloadable resources for members throughout the month. Also, the ABMA podcast, which is hosted by my buddy Shane, a former guest, is going to be theming to each week of the themes that the ABMA is celebrating in general. So there is a whole lot going on. So make sure that you go to Facebook, to Instagram at the ABMA, and check out Behavior Month for October. And you're going to hear a lot of cool behavior conversation in this episode. So I hope y'all are ready. I hope y'all are, getting ready to say y'all, putting on your cowboy hats and getting ready to head on down to Nashville with me, because it's time to go hang out with my buddy Jake Belair of the Nashville Zoo. And my first ever guest on the podcast. This is so cool. Thank you for being back now that I know what I'm doing.
Thanks for coming back. It's so great. It's so fun.
Yeah, and I'm glad we can do this one in person. This is very exciting.
Yeah.
So we are actually in the Ambassador building now. So we'll talk about you a little bit later, but let's talk about what we're seeing right now.
Sure. So this is our newer Ambassador Animal building. We opened it right before the pandemic hit in 2020. It's built for our larger ambassadors and pretty geared for specific species. So this first area we'll go into is where our aardvarks live.
Excellent.
We can go check them out.
Gotta love aardvarks.
People seem to really love them, and it echoes in here because it's so large.
That's okay.
I am not a huge aardvark fan, if I'm honest.
You're saying that in front of an aardvark.
I know, but they're kind of sleeping, so it's fine.
Okay.
So we have a male and a female. We have Winsole and Karanga.
Okay.
And they're both down there in their little pit. Hi, buddy. Aardvarks are wonderful ambassadors. They're both trained to come out on leash and harness. They both work kind of free contact in our VIP room for our tour experiences. So they stay pretty busy. Being a nocturnal 130-pound animal, they're a challenging animal to work with as an ambassador, especially our male Winsole, who doesn't really care about food so much.
Oh, interesting.
So kind of a unique aardvark in that sense. It makes it a little more challenging to work with him as an ambassador and find things that reinforce him for doing the things we ask him to do. But they are really fascinating creatures. The guests love to see them. They're so different and so weird.
Yes.
So they're a really fun one to share with people.
When did you all get Karanga?
Karanga's been with us now for, I think, about 2 years, maybe a year and a half. So she came to us from Disney and was immature when she first came to us. And then once she hit about a year of age, we were able to introduce her to our male Winsel.
Nice.
And then they've been together since then.
That's adorable. I was going to say, because I know last time I was here, I saw Winsel, we met, but I didn't know he had a friend.
He does. He has a special lady friend now. So we're hoping for maybe a, baby aardvark in our future, which would
That'd be
very
awesome.
cool. Yeah.
Aardlets.
Aardlets, yeah. Something like that.
Something like that.
Up next is Betty, our little iguana, who just pooped all over the clean floor that I just made for her, which is very on brand. She's a little rhinoceros iguana. She's a great ambassador. She's about 25 years old.
Wow.
And a real great ambassador for her species, for sure. Hi, Betty.
Hi, Betty. That is a large pile of poop.
Yeah, it's so great. But it's better to happen now than in the middle of our shows, which is when it often happens.
Fair.
So.
Why? I noticed that there's a feather in there. What kind of enrichment is a feather?
Yeah, so it's just kind of like a novel object for her. Obviously, in the islands of Hispaniola, where rhinoceros iguanas are native, they'll find birds all the time. And I don't want to throw a real bird in there with her, but I can certainly throw a feather that has been cleaned. Provides her with some kind of stimulation. She's been sitting on it for a while. Looks like she's moving and grooving.
Of course, as soon as you said she was sitting on it, she had to
she's
move.
like, hello, yeah. Anything I can do to make it worse for you. Thanks, Betty. She's a real sweetheart.
That's awesome.
We'll keep it moving so we're not in the way of these folks. And then I'm going to close this door behind us.
Sounds good.
So this is our kind of main hallway here at the East Building. We've got a handful of enclosures right now that are empty or the animals have been shifted outside because our nature of, having ambassadors that are always doing stuff, they're not always home.
Right.
So this first enclosure here is for our female sloth, Fern. Fern is out doing a tour right now, so she's busy. You can see, we keep it with natural lighting. She's got supplementary heat and extra humidity. She has the shift way, so she can go outside and sit in the sun when it's warm enough, and plenty of natural browse to make sure that she kind of gets all those things cared for, everything she needs.
And this is the building that y'all helped to design, right? Had input in. I could tell because of the drains, which I remember you talking about on the first episode.
Yes, every drain in this building actually is right at the lowest point of the building, which is amazing. We spent about 5 years designing the thing. Obviously, our curator was most heavily involved, but what was awesome about the experience is that all of us keepers were able to be involved in the planning and the idea structure, and all of that has been really cool.
I love that.
Yeah. Next up, another empty habitat. So Stanley, our rhinoceros hornbill.
Oh, I saw Stanley yesterday in the show.
Yes. And you remember he was very playful. He's about 3, so he's a challenge to manage. And so one of the ways that we can help kind of manage his motivation in our shows without having to withhold food from him is by shifting him outside in the morning, making sure that he gets plenty of time to sit in the sun. And there's shade out there too, but he loves to sun himself, and it's much better for him to sun himself in the morning than in the middle of our shows, which are, we want tight behavior, in and out kind of thing. So we shift him outside. He's got water, he's got toys, he's got everything he needs out there, but that'll hopefully mean that he won't try to sun in the middle of our show.
Right. He looks like he's having a good time. I mean, you can see him through the... He's
got a swing out there. He really enjoys.
That's awesome.
We finally have a creature that's in. These are our binturongs, so I know you've met John, and I know you like the binturongs. So we have Willow, who's closest to us.
Hi, Willow.
And Wilbur, who's a little further back. He's kind of napping still.
Hey, Wilbur.
Binturongs are ephemeral, as you know, and that basically means they're awake when it's convenient for them to be awake, and they sleep when it's convenient for them to sleep.
Yes.
So Willow is saying hello now. Hi, Willow Bean. And Wilbur will probably come down. He has a hard time, missing out on a visitor.
Right, I get that.
These binturongs,
so pretty.
Yeah, they are pretty. I think Willow looks slightly more feral than Wilbur does. But these binturongs were both born here at the zoo. They're cousins of one another, as you probably remember. Yeah. Wilbur was our first Palawan binturong born in the United States, and he was born right here at the Nashville Zoo, which is really cool.
And there's always been good breeding here. I know there have been other litters and such.
Yeah, our carnivore team did all of the breeding for the binturongs. They were, very, very successful. We've got Wilbur and Willow's cousins all around the United States right now, which is really cool. Or their siblings, technically, all over the United States, which is awesome.
Right.
Really cool species to get to share with everybody. And we love having binturongs here at the zoo. This is now, Wilbur's turning 8 this year, which is kind of crazy. Hi.
Hi, Wilbur. Can you describe what we're seeing right now? Because this is really cool, like the way that the perching is in here.
Yeah, so I worked with our zoo president, Rick Schwartz, to help kind of like figure out how we would perch out this room. He really had a great vision for making the perching way high. So the ceilings in this building are about 10 feet high. The perching is all sitting at about 8 feet off the ground. So even someone who's 6'4" like myself and you can walk in here without the binturongs being able to reach us super easily. And that's not because they're bad or anything, but it's really distracting to have a binturong holding on to you while you're trying to hose and squeegee. And it's not always convenient to shift the animals outside or to crate them because our binturongs are ambassadors. They're quite used to people being around.
Right.
So it's really nice to be able to come in here and I can hose with the binturongs in here and clean pretty easily without them getting bothered by my hosing or getting in the way of me. Every once in a while, though, Wilbur does like climb down and catch me when I'm close to a perch near him. And then he takes a ride as I squeegee his house.
Well, Wilbur and you have a very special connection, if I remember correctly. Right?
Yeah. I don't know how, but about probably 4 or 5 years ago, Wilbur decided that he really, really liked me. Not abnormal for binturongs. They typically will kind of kick people out of their social circle. But I don't know why he decided that I was still allowed to remain in his. So we're still best buds. He comes out in the shows that I do here at the zoo, and most of my programs that I do, I try to take Wilbur because he's such a fascinating creature. And he likes to come out and see everybody and sniff everybody, which is very fun.
That's really cool. Yeah. I remember yesterday. So I was here yesterday, and you were not slacker.
Yeah.
And I went to the show, and Willow, I figured just that there was a good chance I would see Willow.
Yeah.
So I sat right up front. I went early. I sat up front. And they said, oh, Willow, they announced that Willow was coming out, and she made her appearance. And I was sitting like by myself, and all of a sudden like 8 kids swarmed all around me. And I was just like, oh, okay, no, it's good. They should learn about binturongs. This is great. But it was just very funny. I was just like, oh yeah. But everyone's so fascinated by this. I don't know, man. I mean, they're one of my favorite animals. I have a tattoo of one on my arm right now. And I am still like when I meet a red panda, I love it and it's a great moment, but I'm not like confused by them. I am confused by Willow right now. This is an animal that I have spent time with before, and I'm still like, what are you?
Yeah, binturongs are definitely weird creatures. They're little, big gremlins, really. And she'll sniff your hair and stuff. Her nails are incredibly sharp, so if she gets on you, she'll slice you. Okay. But, it's worth it.
I remember.
Willow loves smelling sweat, loves smelling hair.
Because I'm sweating.
Yeah, so it's perfect. You brought her a gift. And binturongs in general are just so olfactory oriented. They're so scent oriented. So our binturongs are very much the same. Willow has always kind of been more of a challenging animal to trim the nails of. Wilbur will sit there and let me give him a pedicure, no problem whatsoever. Willow has never liked having her nails touched, even when she was younger. So it's definitely like a 2-person trained behavior kind of job. And you can see that they're in desperate need. They're ready.
Oh my goodness, that's my hair. That's my hair, babe.
She's sniffing around. We may get like a Fleming response out of her. She'll definitely, be inhaling. Yeah, I think she's doing it now. She's like, ooh, that was good stuff. Tasty
so sweet.
stuff.
Are we besties? Oh my God, I love her so much. This was... So by the time this is out, I will have talked, regardless of whether I get it or not, about the audition and everything.
Yeah.
And I don't get nervous auditioning for things. This is my life. This is my career, whatever. Yeah. For whatever reason, I got really nervous and uncomfortable about this one. And just felt like I just was like, maybe I don't even want to do it. I don't know why. I never get in my head about this stuff. That would be like you being nervous to go and train an animal someday.
It happens,
right?
man.
Okay, well, that's fair. Yeah. And it was when I reached out to you and was like, can we connect? Can we do something? Just knowing that I would get to spend some time, even if I didn't get to come back here, just knowing that there would be the binturong thing and we'd be doing this, and not this is amazing, which was on my shoulder, but it was actually a big reason why I was like, okay, I'm going to make the trip. And then who cares about the audition? Because Binturong.
Sometimes that's what you need is a little bit of reinforcement, right? I think it works for all of us.
What are you doing to my
Willow's
hair?
getting deep into John's hair right now. She's probably going to, stick her claws into his scalp. So cute. It's not the best feeling in the world, but then you realize, like, who gets to have a binturong, piling through your hair and ripping at your scalp?
Yeah, I'm not complaining. This is amazing. There's just a binturong on me. So let me ask you, while I'm not wanting to walk away, what is it interesting and is it a challenge for you? So I know that you're really into training. The last time that you and I spoke, I literally barely knew that word. And now I'm obsessed with training, and behaviors are amazing to me. And I know that you are a big part of ABMA, or as I like to call it, ABMA, even though Shane said I'm not allowed to. But, and so I'm curious, do you find it hard to train or a lot of work to train so many different taxa and everyone being so different?
I think, the language of training is really consistent across all taxa. So whether I'm working with the binturongs or working with our really timid skunk or free-flying a hornbill, or even working with a snake that hasn't been socialized, kind of all of the work is really the same. It's all about learning what animal behavior looks like, what regular behavior looks like, finding what reinforces the animal, what doesn't. And once you kind of have a grasp of that, like, I'm not saying that I'm like an expert trainer, but I feel more confident in my training skills and my ability to kind of utilize what I know across all species.
Okay.
And that's really handy.
That's really cool. I love that. I used to study philosophy back in the day. And the hard thing for a lot of people who study philosophy is that you have to learn to think not like yourself. You have to write an entire paper from a perspective that you disagree with.
Yeah.
And I feel like as I talk to trainers, it's a very similar thing, which is why I think I fell so in love with the idea of it, because you literally what is motivating them? They did something weird, but it's not their fault. What was the antecedent that we set up to, cause this or whatever? And I just find it fascinating.
It's so interesting. Yeah, to me as well. I tell people pretty frequently, like, one of my biggest pet peeves is when a member of the public sees whatever training we're doing, whatever trained behavior our animals have, and they'll say, like, oh, well, I see why they did it. It's because you have their food. And I'm like, at a very, very, very simple level, certainly,
yes,
the food is the motivator. But in order to get an animal like a binturong, who's most comfortable way up high in the trees, who's most comfortable in solitude, most comfortable without tons of loud, chaotic smells and noises, to run out on a platform in front of 350 screaming people and do that twice a day at set times in a tight time frame. It's like, that's not just food. That is everything that you just mentioned, kind of working in harmony, and sometimes not. And then you'll see Willow or Wilbur not come out for the show. But it really is a lot of work that you have to do to kind of encourage the behaviors that you want when you want them. And that's, you mentioned the ABMA. Like, I love the Animal Behavior Management Alliance. Like, it's an organization that I've been part of for a while now. And, we work with trainers from every single background, be it companion animal training or dolphin training or ambassador animal work or, everything in between. I think having a community like that where we can touch base with each other and ask for advice in a way that is very chill and welcoming is so awesome.
Yeah, I love the podcast too.
Oh my gosh, Shane's doing an amazing job,
good.
Isn't he?
Yeah, so good. When Shane was on Rossifari, which you set up, thank you, he actually talked to me about the fact that he wanted to start it, and we talked a lot about the logistics and everything. So
that's awesome.
It's just a cool little way that I got to give back in a very small way.
That's awesome. Yeah,
I'm glad to be able to. And it's a beast. It's amazing.
Yeah, he's really churning them out, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome, man. Goodbye, little bird. Goodbye, Willow. I love you. Now she's all like, what? Now I'm done with you. Amazing. Absolutely.
Willow. She's so cute.
Okay, cool. So that was the best ever, but now we're at another one of my favorite animals.
Yeah, and this is one of my favorites too. So this is Andre, and we have to watch very closely because Andre loves to give showers sometimes. We're, at our tamandua enclosure here, and again, we're behind the scenes, so like it's a mesh front, perching throughout, natural light, etc. But he can climb 10 feet up on the mesh and then just pee directly out into the hallway.
That's amazing.
Is awesome when you're not there because then there's less cleaning up to do inside his house. It's less fun when you're chatting about him and he decides to just give you a nice golden shower. And that's a pretty typical tamandua thing. They're just, scent oriented. They want to make sure that their smell is everywhere. And Andre has a girlfriend in this building.
Oh, okay.
Pretty recent new addition.
Ooh.
So he, especially when she goes into her estrus cycle, is keyed up and ready to go see her. We're on round 2. We'll start next week, which will be really awesome. So I'm really hoping, that we may eventually have a little tamandua pup too. One of the things I love about the Nashville Zoo and our ambassador area especially is that our curator is so interested in participating in species survival plans and participating with breeding programs that will just kind of help the ambassador and non-ambassador community. One of the kind of old schools of thought is that like ambassador animals shouldn't be breeding,
right,
they shouldn't be involved. And we, along with a handful of other zoos, have been really trying to push the idea that we can do both. We can have enough space, enough time, et cetera, to do both. And that's definitely kind of an institutional thing. We're really fortunate here in Nashville that our higher-ups believe in that as well and want us to push forward. Because it means that we have what is, traditionally more space for ambassadors than other zoos might. But it's great for the animals' well-being and for ours as well, which is awesome.
Yeah, that is really
We're going to move because he's getting aroused and interested in peeing. So we're just going to run through here.
I weirdly don't get interested in peeing when I get aroused. I don't know.
Everybody's different. So again, we're in a nice ambassador building. We'll probably stay in this hallway because down there, as you may be able to hear,
oh yeah,
we have a crow. We have our Vanderdecken's hornbill, who's very territorial of her space. Aww. And then my perfect little Arasari. My perfect little Arasari is all the way down at the end. He's not making a peep. But we section off this building in a way that makes sure that the animals have what they need in their areas. But we don't generally do a lot of tours in this area because our animals are often going out to meet people. So behind you is kind of what we've labeled our kind of maternity ward. Right now we have our female tamandua who is not yet pregnant, but kind of just hanging out in here. And then once we have a pregnancy with her or with our skunk or with our sloth, we can kind of move things around to give them a nice, I would say, quiet. It's quiet when the crow doesn't hear people here. So we'll pop in and see the best birds.
Oh my God.
And we're hearing a very loud kind of buzzing noise that is them removing some grease from the traps in our kitchen down the road. So quite loud out here, but these are our Chilean flamingos. We've got 12 of the birds in here. They have an indoor and an outdoor area. And one thing that's been really cool is these birds have all been maturing recently. And we've got 2 nests, which is really amazing. They've been building these nests on their own.
Nice.
And really beginning the process of becoming flamingo parents, which we never really expected. We don't necessarily need more flamingos, but I'm never going to say no to more flamingos. So I'm very hopeful that we may have a chick at some point.
Nice. And this is the crew that does a very special thing sometimes, right?
Yeah, so our flamingos walk every day that they want to walk. Sometimes that means that all 12 go. Oftentimes that means that we have between 8 and 12 go. Sometimes it's 2 birds decide they want to go and nobody else wants to, and that's fine too. We don't force them to do anything they don't want to do, but we hand-raised most of these birds. A handful of them came from the Columbus Zoo.
Nice.
And they are all pretty well accustomed to people. So they walk through the zoo, they go up, they eat some krill, they play with toys, and they walk back. It's a great way for our guests to get up close to flamingos.
Pretty cool. I love that. It's a really innovative use of a great species.
Yeah, they're awesome birds, and it's a great way to, kind of work with them as ambassadors in a way that's not so coercive.
Right.
Which I love.
Yeah, very cool.
All right, let's move.
Yes. Let's get to a place where I have to do less sound editing.
We're going to go all the way down to the
Okay. And let's talk about the ones that we're not stopping at because we don't want them distracted for their stuff later. But right down next to Andre.
Yes, the best girls. So we have 2 clouded leopards that were born here at the zoo in 2015. And we raised them to be ambassadors. Hope and Faith are their names. And they're my heart cats.
Yes, they are so
awesome
good.
Cats. So we work them in that room down there, the VIP room, where we do our tours, so we can collar and leash them in their home and walk them directly in there. And they have a tour later today, and I'm sure that this massive noise out there is going to throw Faith off a little bit. I think Hope will be our rock star still.
Nice.
It's funny, I love Faith more than I love Hope, which Hope knows. I don't think it's a secret. But I love them both dearly. And Hope is not nice to most people. There's just a couple of us that she's nice to, so I still have to love on her.
That's fair.
Over here is another one that you've met before. This is Charlie. Charlie's our prehensile-tailed porcupine.
Yes.
And so again, we like that natural perching. So he's got grapevine, he's got honeysuckle, he's got hackberry, and then he's all the way in his little privacy corner.
Hi, bud.
Charlie, just like most porcupines, is fairly nocturnal. So we try to make this kind of way for him to be able to stay away from people if he doesn't want to come out. And then when he decides to come out, he can. One of the ways we can provide some extra choice and control for him just in his everyday life.
Right. No, that's very cool and very important.
Okay, so
I just saw a skunk butt go running.
Yeah, little Nutmeg went running. Nutmeg is not a huge fan of people in her space, obviously, and that's why we have the indoor-outdoor, so if she doesn't want to be in here, she can just bounce and forage outside and do her thing. So we've got Rabbit Kingdom over here on your left. We've got 2 continental giant rabbits and 2 Belgian hares, which are a breed of rabbit bred to look like a hare. Our education staff usually uses the rabbits quite a bit. The skunks, we have Nutmeg here on the left and Parsley here on the right, who's kind of napping in his little bin.
Parsley was in the show yesterday.
Yeah, he's a great little runner in our shows. He's a big skunk, too. He's a little overconditioned, but also just big boned.
Right.
And then Nutmeg weighs almost half as much as Parsley does. She's just teeny, teeny, tiny. Very much the opposite. But we love having skunks here at the zoo. I think we're still one of the very few places in Tennessee that's allowed to have skunks as ambassadors.
Interesting.
We take that really seriously. This is a rabies vector species. We are very cautious with how we work them in front of guests, and the kind of contact that guests are not allowed to have. Really important. But they're an amazing species, and especially here in Tennessee where we have striped skunks all over, it's awesome for guests to get to meet them and learn why they're a good neighbor to have around instead of looking at them as a pest.
Absolutely. And actually, yesterday in the show, it was mentioned, I found this really fascinating. Y'all use a clicker for training Parsley, but not as a bridge like most people do. Yeah. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so we use all different kinds of cues for our animals, and we use all different kinds of bridges for animals. And one of the things that I learned a while ago in my career, probably actually from Wouter Stillard, when I worked at the Columbus Zoo with him, is that often the bridge that you think you're using is not necessarily the bridge that the animal is relying on. So, for example, if I was using a clicker and then going to get food, well, oftentimes my hand is going into my treat pouch before I even click. And so the animal is more than likely relying on that as a bridging stimulus. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just kind of an interesting note. And so when we use different cues with our animals, they don't just have to be the traditional verbal ones or using a target stick or anything like that. We can use a variety of things. And for us, with a skunk that is so scent oriented out on our stage, so, kind of overwhelmed with all of the sensations in our amphitheater, which is, there's guests sitting up above all of the animals, and then all kinds of animals running and walking on the stage. So lots of scent, lots of sound overload. So the clicker is a really distinct sound that kind of cuts through that noise. we can use it multiple times in a row to give him that kind of like cue of like, hey, this is where we're coming now. Because oftentimes he does get distracted by, oh, like I walked in the flamingo yard now and I'm going to walk on stage later. So there's a little bit of flamingo poop that he's really keen about. And we can use that clicker to kind of get him back on course and finish his behavior, which is really awesome.
That is really cool. I love that because it's such an innovative use of a tool that has become, I think, like in the trainer's toolbox, it's such a this is your bridge thing. That to actually think outside the box and be like, well, this could be a recall, that's really cool. I dig that.
It's funny because when we are presenting it in our shows, we don't necessarily say like, this is not how we recommend you use a clicker, or, like if you're wanting a clicker as a bridge, don't do what we're doing. But certainly when we're doing like smaller group activities, we are all like, now what I'm doing is not what, what you think I'm doing. Because we don't want to be, on the internet being click, call us Chris Pratt. But
that's a great reference.
It is, it's a great way for us to kind of cue him along and help him out.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Yesterday when I was watching the show, it was mentioned in the show, not as you said, not in the like, this is not a bridge type thing, but just in a very like, she was like, yeah, this is his recall and he'll come to this. And as she was starting to say it in my brain, I was like, this is his bridge. What word did she say? So yeah, we had to have a quick discussion about that afterwards because I was really intrigued. It was really cool to see.
It's handy for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's pop outside. It sounds like they have paused for now.
Amazing.
So now we're outside. We've got kind of outdoor enclosures for all of our creatures. You can see Stanley the rhino hornbill down there.
Stanley.
Hi, Stan.
Oh, buddy.
What are you doing?
Stanley's a troublemaker.
He is just a handful and a half, which is very typical rhinoceros hornbill, male, 3 years old. We've got, all of the things going for us right now, but he definitely makes our lives very fun. And I'll be honest, like I've been flying much smaller birds outside for the last like several years, kookaburra, Rossifari, Vanderdecken hornbill, even, kestrel and barn owl. So I am thrilled that we have such a giant bird out here. I have been free flying birds for now over 10 years, but it still is kind of nerve wracking, as you can imagine, just having a bird free flying outside with so many different stimuli. Well, I very, very, very rarely am ever afraid when I have Stanley out because he's so easy to see. All of the other birds I fly are so tiny and can hide so easily and in plain sight. Stanley sticks out like a sore thumb with his bright orange beak, and he's so noisy. And when he gets up high, even if he's not keen to come back down right then, he's like looking at you and playing and having a good time, which is really fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was recently at Roger Williams Park Zoo where NEI is doing a free flight show this summer. And we were hanging out with it was Danny Larson and I were hanging out with the I know, she's a great we were hanging out with the NEI team, and they were working on training the military macaws to do free flight. They're the last ones that they're adding to the show. And zing, they took off, and it was really fun because like they all got back, everything's fine.
Nice.
But we stayed and tried to help them spot these green macaws in green trees somewhere for like 3 hours till the zoo closed. And then the next day they announced it, and they announced everyone made it back. But also, hey, just so you know, if you start seeing macaws in the neighborhood, we're working on this training thing. Just let us know, but it's fine.
Yeah.
I thought that was really it was funny. I saw that the post about it, and I was like, "Ooh, I know why that happened."
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, fly-offs are just kind of a normal part of free-flighted bird work, and it's nice when it's a tropical species or a species that's not supposed to be there. Last year we had a barn owl fly off, and that was like a little more challenging because it's hard to tell people like it's going to be a bird that you would maybe see in your area. You probably aren't used to seeing them, but you'll have to get a real good look at her to see her telemetry equipment and all of that on her.
Yeah.
A challenge for sure, but definitely kind of fun. We're going to meet Wednesday next, who's our little pride and joy, our king vulture chick.
Nice.
And she is a perfect angel, which is awesome.
I love that you just said, I love Danny, and now we're going to see a king vulture chick because she is obsessed with getting a king vulture at some point.
And she deserves one.
Yes,
she's one of the best trainers I've ever met,
she is
and
amazing.
I think that she deserves nothing more than a perfect king vulture. Our girl Wednesday hatched out here at the zoo. She is now about a year old, probably. all of the birthdays and hatch days and everything kind of get away from me, I'll be honest. But you can see she's still got her juvenile coloration.
Yeah.
Hi, darling. Come on down. And she's just a hoot and a half. Wednesday, like a lot of king vultures, is more a fan of being kind of like on the ground, moving on the ground, than she is of free flying right now. And certainly being such a heavy-bodied bird, that makes sense. So hopefully we'll see her really doing some nice flights on our shows at some point. But because she's still young, we're kind of just working on short little flights and kind of just having her hop around and do her thing. Oh my God. And so that's what she does in our house here too. Hi.
She's so cool.
Yeah, she's still so cool, still very much a baby, which I love. I think eventually she'll turn into a more mature vulture who's got people she likes and doesn't like. But for now, she's a little baby. She'll go down like a boat and just kind of lay there and ask for attention.
Aw.
So cute.
That's awesome.
Hi, Wednesday.
How you doing, Wednesday?
We had the most fun with her right before she fledged, and she was kind of in that awkward teenage stage where she kind of looked like a chick, kind of looked like a juvenile, wasn't the cutest bird, but wasn't a flight risk. And we were able to take her out and have her run around. I mean, she would try to get on people's strollers. The guests loved her. We loved her. She was such a fun bird to bring out. And so now that she's a little bit more capable of flying, and we're still working on the mechanics of flying down and all of that in case she gets taken up by a gust of wind, she's really just working in our amphitheater shows. But eventually, I'm really hoping we'll be able to take her out for walks through the zoo again when she's a little bit more mature.
Nice. How do you decide who comes out? And I know we're ignoring their choice and control for a second because they get to make their own decisions. So, but how do you decide who's going to do it? Oh my God.
So we definitely have an idea when we are looking at our institutional collection plan and our departmental collection plan of okay, we could really use a free-flighted bird or a larger bird or a climbing mammal or a terrestrial mammal in the shows. And our encounters team kind of does the same thing. They're like, well, we have 3 birds that we can take out on the hand. It would be nice to have a bird that we can fly.
Right.
So we kind of go with that. And obviously then, the animals will dictate if that is actually going to be realistic or not. Mm-hmm. But we definitely try to have diversity in our shows. So we have 2 separate teams that do our 2 shows right now. So in the show I do with my coworkers Cam and Scarlett, we have Wilbur the Binturong comes out first, and then we do our iguana Betty, who you met today. Yes. Then we go to our Kookaburra Adelaide, who free flies, our Rossifari Petrie, who hops on guest arms.
Nice.
And then we bounce to our Caracal Samir, who's awesome. And then our Tamandua Andre, who tried to pee on us. And then we end with Stanley the Rhino Hornbill. And those of you who free fly, immature birds that make fun decisions all the time will understand why we put Stanley at the end of the show. Less for him to ruin if he decides he wants to fly off.
I can't imagine he would fly. Who am I kidding? He flew off yesterday. I was dying.
He definitely goes through phases where we won't have a flat for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then one day he's just like, I don't want to do that. And he's never afraid of something. It's never something that makes sense. We get, we get service dogs or service dogs in quotations that come to the zoo often, and the normal service dogs none of our animals care about. Those dogs are so well trained, so well behaved. The service dogs in quotations are not always the same way, and the animals always know as soon as we know. They can see the behavior is different.
That's amazing. I love that, actually. I hate that that's such a thing, but I do love that.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
But even that doesn't really faze Stanley. But he'll just decide. He's like, no, I'm not ready to be done right now. And then he's like, I'm going to go up to this tree. And then he comes back down when he's ready. And usually that's a pretty quick kind of turnaround. But every once in a while, he'll be out for an hour. And I'm just melting in the sun. Stanley, please.
Well, it's nice to know that he does that regularly, because literally the last 2 bird shows that I've been to are the Roger Williams one where we had fly-offs, and then Stanley. And I was like, is it me?
No, yeah. Very, very normal. Especially, I think, the way that we try to work with Stanley is we don't withhold food from him. Mm. So we certainly manipulate his diet in a way that he, in theory, is more motivated for the really juicy and good stuff that we have for the shows. But we're not starving him to get him to fly, which sometimes means, and the fact that we have 8 different people who are working with him on any given day. That just sometimes means that our behavior is not as tight. And Stanley's a growing bird with, needs as far as his like social and emotional needs that we can't always address working in shows. So sometimes he's like, no, I just really need some attention. And the best way to get that is right after the show. Hi, baby. Wednesday's over here just being a boat.
Wednesday's so
being
good.
so cute, being an angel.
Oh my God.
Hi. You're so cute.
You are. I don't understand how people do not like vultures.
It's
It's beyond me.
Did you see Fester, our turkey vulture, yesterday?
Yes.
Was he in the show
Yes.
too? Yeah, I love him too.
He was amazing.
Vultures are so smart birds, so smart, and just so neat to get to interact with. I'm
So-
very lucky.
I have a dumb question for you, since you mentioned the shows.
Okay.
Okay. So in the you look suspicious. Don't worry. It's a dumb question, not a tricky one. In the audience, audiences tend to not be great at participation a lot of the time, especially when you ask questions like, who likes vultures? Who likes bugs? Which are questions that are built into the show. And I'm the idiot who is like, me, yes, me, Binturong, yes, all the things.
Yeah.
Do you actually like when, even if it's just one person and even if it's a guy who's probably not the age you're aiming at, does that make the show easier for y'all? Or does that make it like, are you almost like on alert, like, oh, is this guy going to be weird or something?
No, 1,000%. I love anytime an audience member or members participate or engage in any way. That really feeds my energy. I mean, I can't tell you the number of shows that I've done in the dead of summer here in Nashville, 100 degrees. The animals are feeling it. I'm feeling it. The audience is feeling it. And they're all just looking at me with dead eyes and just like, they're there, but they're not there,
Yeah.
and then that just drains all of my life out of me. Versus when people will interact, I don't care what age and I don't care what they're reacting to. If it's positive, if it's joyful, it's like a breath of fresh air. It's really invigorating. And I think that's the best way that we can connect with our audience is find those things that they're really into or not into. I definitely try early in the show, if an audience member does something that I like, I really try to call that out and reinforce that and be like, oh, thank you. Like things like that really make people feel comfortable and connected in my experience. And I've been to shows at other zoos, I can tell you off the podcast, that really did not make me feel connected to the hosts or to the staff there. And one of the things that I love about our shows here is that that's not our vibe. Like we want to make the shows for the audience, and we definitely see that we do, because people will stick around after the shows and chat with us, not just nerds like you, but like normal people too. Normies will come down and just be like, what happened here, or why is Stanley so cute, or whatever, and then we get to chat with them and hang out with them. And I love that. I love the aspect of guest connection in a way that's a little different from me just kind of talking at people for 20 minutes. We actually get to have that one-on-one where I go more in depth about something they're curious about, or, the thing where the guests come and tell you a story. And, I'm not a fan of stories that's like, my dad killed an opossum once and I saw it. And I'm like, I don't care. Like I have a real hard time being friendly and welcoming about that. But I love when people want to tell me that they found an opossum and rescued it and took it to a rehabilitator, or I had a lady who had a picture of a bobcat on her phone and she just wanted to share it with someone who would think that it was cool. Right. And she kind of did the same thing you did. Like, I know this is dumb, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, girl, that's not dumb. That's so cool. Like, it's just really neat to get to experience that with people and connect with them that way. So
cool. That's really good to know, because as a performer myself, I want a big, loud audience, but it's kind of a different setting. But I will tell you that I have literally done shows with a dead audience. The theater I was just playing at, they didn't turn the AC on half the time, and it was 90 degrees. We were dying. The audience was dying. My drums were about as literally less reactive than normal because the heads stretch out a little bit. Yeah. So it literally is like the animals, like you said, they're there, but are that, Yeah. It literally was harder to work. And if you'd have one person in the back just cheering you on while everyone else is just fanning themselves, that person, you're just throwing all your energy at that person. But I'm also a performer, and y'all are, but also that's not why most people get into animal care. Right. So,
it's definitely an interesting kind of thing being an ambassador animal person. We care for probably 60 species of animals, and this is not just basic, like I throw them food and water. We do all of the behavioral management. We do all of the diet management, the perching, all of the, intricacies of animal care. And then we also have to go and talk to people and do it in a way that's not just, hi, this is Wednesday, a king vulture. Right. It has to be engaging and exciting for the audience. And I love the opportunity to do that. Is so fun. And getting to this plane.
Look at that big bird Wednesday.
She's like, oh. Getting to kind of interact with our audience members, especially on the shows where a bunch of people are just like talking at each other on their phones, which is just kind of like a phenomenon that's happened in the last 5 or so years. That people come to the shows, but they're not there necessarily to watch the shows. Often it's like a place to drop the kids for babysitting while they sit on their phones, or a place to sit down while they socialize, and trying to figure out ways that we can get them engaged and interested in the little conservation message that we're trying to share, or at least to laugh at a joke that we have. And those handful of people that make eye contact with you the whole time or nod while you're talking, all of that is just like my bread and butter. And I'm like, thank you so much.
That's awesome. Yeah, dude, that's happening in like the theater world and concert world now. It's mind-boggling to me that you would pay sometimes ridiculous prices to come and sit on your phone. And also, one advantage that y'all have over us is you're in the sun.
Yeah.
When it is dark, I don't care how light your screen is, how much you've made it dark, which a lot of people just don't, by the way.
Yeah.
All you are is a floating pale head. You look like a ghost, a disinterested ghost, and I hate you. And we all hate you. Let that be my PSA. If you are on your phone for more than a second, because then we'll give you the thought, maybe we forgot to silence it.
Sure.
But if you are on your phone for more than a second, we see you. Oh, you think hiding it under your program works? It's not how light works, friends, okay? And we see you, we know, and we hate you. Just so you know, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We literally hate you.
I definitely feel it's definitely a little more difficult when I go out and 90% of my audience is on their phones and not interacting with me. And we don't charge for our shows. And my job is, I'm not there to be a babysitter. I'm not there to just entertain the kids. I'm there to help educate and entertain everybody who comes. And I definitely have to, be very, very intentional and be very kind of careful with how I react to people who are coming and being what I consider rude in our shows. And I am now, it's been so many years of people just being on their phones and talking to each other during the shows. I'm like, okay, whatever. The people who are, I've had several men recently in like the front 1 or 2 rows talking on the phone loudly during the show. And that is just like a very interesting dynamic, because I'm just like, I would never want to be so rude to someone who's giving a show. Like, I would just leave.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be mad if this man just left. But it's definitely like one of those, what's our world coming to? Very, very not important, but it's definitely kind of an interesting shift in our world as ambassador animal people, of like audiences that we just need to do more work with to get them engaged. And that's, that's a challenge for us. How can we reel people in? So we try to, throw in more jokes that are not adult, like rated R, but adult, like geared for a mind that is like maybe paying less attention, but will catch, my coworker saying something a little sassy to me that maybe the kids won't pick up on, but the adults might. And that's just one of the strategies we can employ to try to get people like a little more engaged. And sometimes it works, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And then they learn something, or, find out more about the conservation work we're doing here. And that's really the whole goal of our shows, is like, we know we're not stupid. We know that people are coming to the shows to be entertained.
Right.
And so I don't want it to be a snooze fest of like, here's a lecture for you. So we love to tell people about the animals and about their stories and about, the conservation work that the Nashville Zoo does, because there's so much that we do through our WildWorks initiatives. And that's just a great way for us to kind of connect with our guests and help them realize that they're making a difference, whether they're choosing to or intentionally doing it or not.
Right.
They are making a difference in the lives of animals, both here at the zoo and around the globe.
Yeah, I love that.
Hi, Wednesday.
Wednesday is so good. I love that we're just chilling here.
Yeah, and she's just like content.
You keep booping the snoot.
Yeah, I got
such
a boop.
good face. Oh, so pretty. Any conservation organization you want to give a shout out to?
I love the Nashville Wildlife Conservation Center. They do incredible rehabilitative work with native wildlife, in particular box turtles and
Oh my
other
God.
kinds of turtles.
Nice.
Which, I mean, I think everybody can get on board with turtles, but turtles are not necessarily the like sexiest kind of conservation project. But I love the work that Debbie and her team are doing out in East Nashville. They are just awesome educators and rehabilitators, and so they're who I'm always talking about these days.
Nice.
Love them.
Very cool. Very cool. I love that it's local too. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, very cool. And then it's time now, don't you know? We've come to the end of the show. But there's one tale left to go. You're gonna laugh and say, oh no. It's time for the Rossifari poop story. This was something that got innovated after your
Yes.
episode, but
Yes.
now we get a Jake Belair Rossifari poop story.
Poop story.
We almost had one today if we hadn't moved quick enough.
Yeah, that would have been so bad.
Live action. Baby.
Yeah, I think really the one that happens most frequently these days is our beautiful rhino iguana Betty. Often will poop in her crate on the way to the shows. And the way that our show has a quick turnaround is I'm like running off stage with the binturong on my shoulders, asking him to go into a crate, reinforcing him, crating, running, grabbing Betty, seeing if she's ready to go, and then taking her out on stage. That leaves very little time to like check her booty and her tail and her feet to make sure she hasn't tracked poop or like trudged through the poop. And she often has. So then I walk onto the stage and I'm carrying this very, very poopy iguana and kind of just plopping her on stage and like showing my co-host like, hey, watch yourself. So these days I take a paper towel, wet paper towel out with me every single show. And probably 9 out of every 10 shows I do a week, she has pooped and walked through it and delivers that to me on stage. So
Nice. Nice. Yeah. It's a daily poop story.
Poop story.
yeah, it's one that we just have to live with, I guess.
Love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this again. This has been so much fun.
Thanks for coming. It was so fun to have you.
Oh, that was such a blast. I hope y'all enjoyed that even half as much as I did. Getting to hang out with Wilbur and Willow, the Binturongs, with Wednesday, the vulture, all while just like talking to Jake about cool, animal stuff and behavior stuff. That was pretty amazing. Not gonna lie. I do have a funny story for y'all that I need to share. So I mentioned in the interview that I was in Nashville at this time. This was well before the conference that I just attended. I was actually there for an audition for a tour. And I had my callback, the final callback, the very last thing before you find out if you get a gig or not, scheduled for right after my interview with Jake. And as you heard in the episode, Willow really, really dug into my hair. She was snorting and sniffing and having a good old time, just figuring out who John was. And when I left the interview, I realized that my hair was a little disheveled, nothing crazy, but a little disheveled. And I definitely smelled like Binturong. And had maybe even just a few stray hairs, nothing crazy on me. And I had to make this decision of whether I would stop and like run back to my hotel and change shirts and wash off and comb my hair, or whether I would just go to the audition as was. And, frankly, I decided that if they couldn't handle me at my most binturong, they couldn't handle me at my most professional. So I went in as much myself as I could be, feeling absolutely content and having the essence of Willow all around me, which was pretty amazing. There just aren't that many people who can say that they got to go to Nashville to play Johnny Cash's music for, amongst other people, Johnny Cash's son. But there are a few. I'm fairly certain, however, that I'm the only one who can say that they did so while smelling of binturong and having their hair designed by said binturong. So I'll take that one to the grave, y'all. Anyway, don't forget what I said in the intro. Go check out the ABMA. They are amazing. The great website. Find them on the socials. Dive into Behavior Month. You know, they are really a group that can help you at whatever level you're at. I am not a trainer, but I get so much from their content. So go and check that out and make sure that you get to the Nashville Zoo if you're ever in that area. It is an incredible facility that I just frankly can't stop talking about on this podcast. One more friendly reminder that you can support the podcast. There are a bunch of ways to do that. You can do so by leaving a rating, leaving a review. They really, really help, y'all. You can do that by following along, making sure you hit subscribe, making sure that you follow at Rossifari on Instagram, Facebook, X, I guess it's called now instead of Twitter. It's still Twitter to me. Threads, at Rossifari Pod on TikTok. And of course, you can support the pod financially for as little as $3 a month, which is quite the deal, honestly, by going to patreon.com/Rossifari. I'd like to say thank you to all of my current patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Shank and Dr. Stephen Williamson. There's going to be a little extra bonus content from this episode in your patron feed this week, y'all. So make sure that you go and check that out and enjoy it. And if you're not a patron and are curious what that audio might be, well, go become a patron and you will find out. Patreon.com/Rossifari. And remember, friends, the word credits backwards is Steiderk. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.